Well, hello, Liberty listeners. Welcome to another episode of Liberty Road. Today, we get to have an interesting and meaningful chat with Karen Robinovitz. Karen is the founder of Sloo Moo Institute, but she is the founder of so many things before. And part of this conversation is to unpack and get into all the things she's done, why she's done them, why she's pivoted. You're going to be touched by this story. I know. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely.
Would love to just add, and it's not at all correcting you, it's that I can't take all the credit at Sloo Moo. I'm a co-founder. I have a partner. We're best friends, and we could not do it without the other.
Thank you for correcting me. That's worth correcting. And also for just being an example of what it means when we support one another and share our success with other women. I often talk about what it means when women actually help women, and it's not just a hashtag. And it's even moments like that, little moments like that, where we highlight and shed a light on other people. That's important. So thank you for that. Okay, so tell us how you became the co-founder. First, actually, tell us what Sloo Moo Institute is.
Sloo Moo Institute is an immersive experience, one you buy tickets for, and it is really about letting go and hands-on play. We are often known as the Slime Museum because slime is an enormous part of our experience, and you will find hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of gallons of slime of all different colors, textures, scents. And the entire experience is really about going on that journey of phones away, analog, hands in, exploration, discovery, connection, and joy.
It's funny. For those who can't see you, you actually look like the brand. You're holding purple Sloo Moo in your hand. You've got this brightly colored sweater on. You've got a brightly colored hat on. You represent sort of the joy and the happiness that Sloo Moo brings, not only to children, but adults. You have a lot of adults coming in.
We do, and we've actually recently done a bit of a study. So I have some really incredible statistics about adults on slime and how it impacts them.
Well, we'll get into that in just a second and what led you to this. First, let's just back up a little bit. You've had a successful career. You've written books, a media career. Let me say that. Let me focus on that. But you've written books. You were the founder of DBA, which was a very early agency for influencers. Am I saying that right? Yeah.
Yep.
And
we were actually the first talent management agency, and also, again,
co-founder.
But yes, I was out there touting what we call influencer now in 2006.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's amazing. What did you see? What did you see that made you say this is something? This is not just people like being popular on a digital platform.
I think what I really saw when I distill it into its most basic form is the equivalent of television killed the radio star. I look at, if you think about the evolutionary trajectory of transportation, people walked, then they were riding horses, then it was, the horse and buggy.
Yeah.
And, then that changed into cars, which turned into trains, which turned into planes, and then the car evolved, and so on and so forth. And you see that same trajectory in the way people consume media. It was radio, it was newspaper, it was radio, it was television. And I saw this movement of people telling stories, creating content, impacting other people. And it might have been about a new lip gloss, but it was also about, did anyone just feel an earthquake? And when I saw that, immediately my mind went to this is what happened in the past and this is going to happen again, because there is always a pendulum and a new movement in every single area of the world. So it was happening. I just really was at the early stage of believing in it.
Yeah. Well, you definitely captured something there, and it still today. It's um, probably the go-to or
Mm-hmm.
one of the go-to agencies for influencers and people really at the top of their game. And we're not talking about the micro crowd. We're talking about people who are really risen to the top of that social media game. Okay. So, and by the way, you had a lip gloss too. When you just said lip gloss, didn't you have a lip gloss for a hot minute?
I did. That was a great learning experience and a really good example of when things don't work, you got to just pick yourself up and go back out there.
Yeah.
And there were elements of it that were amazing and that worked. And I sort of knew when the brand wasn't going to work. And in my head, I was like, it's no big deal. I've got a backup plan. And that was DBA.
Oh, wow. Isn't that funny? Can I ask you a question for those listening who maybe hang in a little too long with a business that they're doing, hoping kind of for some sort of bump, hoping for the best? What do you think is enough time to say this is working or this isn't going to work?
I think it's really personal. And it's a lot like a marriage.
Yeah.
Some people stay a really long time because they hold on. And sometimes those actually, it works in their favor. In the case with me specifically, it was very clear. And when the writing was on the wall, I said to myself, I'm glad I tried. I'm glad I have this
Hmm.
experience. I learned so much from that, and I'm glad I believe in myself to, without missing one beat, have a backup plan that just took off.
Yeah. And I think the lesson here is when we can be honest with ourselves about those things, there's something else waiting in the wings, whether you actually have a backup plan like you did or one is coming. Sometimes we just need to let go of the things that aren't working for us. Okay, so that brings us to co-founding Sloo Moo. What what was it about slime that would take somebody who was having so much success on the media side of things, so much success in the influencer and social media world into slime?
I I I will give you the abridged, and then you
Yeah,
can ask me more details. It's
sure.
because when I go into so many details, it can be a very long story.
Yeah.
7 years ago, a little more than 7 years ago, my personal life completely blew up.
Hmm.
I had been married. We were together for 14 years. The last 5 years of our marriage were riddled with struggle and difficulty and challenges. And we wound up separating. And during that separation, he passed. And I had a massive, massive nervous breakdown. I never really had the closure. I never imagined anything like that could even remotely happen. And it's the kind of thing that not only changes you on the outside, but it just ripped me apart internally. And I really looked at my life. And I saw so many places where I was truly unhappy that I didn't take the time to feel. And months after losing him, I lost my cousin in the Parkland school shooting. I guess I'm not doing the abridged version. I'm sorry.
No, I know the story, and I think as long as you're willing to go into it, we're here for the story.
Yeah, when that happened, I fell into such an abyss of crippling depression. I just really saw how I not life is short, make the most. I saw life is pain. How do we get through every day now? The pain in my soul was so devastating and excruciating that I truly didn't know how to get every day. It wasn't how do I get through the day? It was how do I get through each minute?
Mm.
I was just a walking piece of pain. And at this time in my life, I also really saw who my friends were by who showed up for me and who didn't, who was there for what felt like the gossip, and then who stopped showing up after the memorial. And I also don't think I was happy at work. And I saw a big gaping hole in something missing in my life. And I didn't know how to even remotely get it, but I knew that I couldn't function. And I did everything, right? I went on antidepressants. I was seeing a bereavement counselor. I was in therapy. I obviously had a psychiatrist. I was in a support group. I was seeing all the non-traditional healers, from shamans to acupuncture. I remember an acupuncturist said to me when I first got on the table, "Have you been in a car accident?" And I basically said yes, but an emotional one, because it shows up in your body. I know this sounds really crazy, but there was about a year where I would walk around and say, I know this is crazy, but my bottom half of my body and my upper half of my body do not feel connected. Like I cannot move in a normal way. It was just, I was in pieces. And I thought about just calling it a day and moving in with my parents. Like I just didn't know what to do. And luckily, I love art, contemporary art. I'm a collector. I was lucky enough to buy some pieces early on in artist careers that had a lot of value. I sold work in order to literally pay for my support. And one day, my friend Melissa and her husband, Mike, came to my house with their then 10-year-old. I was probably about a year and a half in, and somebody who really wasn't socializing that much and doing things out in the world. And their 10-year-old had slime. And I said, "Oh, Maddie, I want to see your slime." I grew up with it in the 70s when it was by Mattel and came in a plastic garbage can and sometimes had eyeballs and worms and other things in it. And it was my favorite thing as a child. And I knew there was a zeitgeist in this handmade slime universe. I had seen the fact that there were billions upon billions of views on YouTube. I knew there were deep hashtags. I knew there were influencers. I even remember going to our then talent managers when I was at DBA saying we should work with a mother influencer and like create a slime brand and like partner her with a slime influencer. And everybody looked at me like I had 3 heads. And it was something in me that felt a pull in retrospect. And I sat on the floor with my friend's daughter, and then suddenly Melissa and Mike were saying, we have to go, but it was so great, even though we didn't talk to you. And I was like, what do you mean you just got here? And they were like, "You've been playing with our daughter for 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, during the 4 hours, I was in complete joy. At one point, Maddie and I were drizzling slime off the roof of my building. You know, I was actually a 7-year-old again. And I realized that I had completely forgotten about my grief and my pain. I was just not in it. And it was the first time I had an afternoon without crying. It was the first time I felt any genuine sense of happiness. So I said, not only do I need to keep some, but where do I get more?
Yeah.
Maddie gave me a list of, these are the Slimers, kids mostly, but there were definitely adults in there to buy from. And these are the types of slime each one is known for. And I went to town and found so much excitement and escape in the art of playing. I brought slime to my friend Sarah. In a minute, we can talk about her story, but she was going through equal levels of trauma. And I knew she needed to play also. And I went to her house with slime, and she felt the same beauty I did. And we looked over at her 2 daughters, and now they're 12 and 16, turning 17. Her oldest daughter has a rare genetic syndrome and a lot of limitations, and she's nonverbal, and she can't feed herself, and she can't get dressed on her own. She can't go to the bathroom on her own. She can't really do anything on her own in daily life activities. But we watched her two daughters playing, and they were equal. And they were enjoying slime and communicating through this play. And I was like, do you see what's happening there? And she was like, this is magic. And I was like, this is not just a kid's toy. We have to bring this to people.
Yeah.
And that's how the brand started.
So it's like it's equalizing the adult-child relationship and connection and bringing the inner child out of the adult and the imagination out of both. It's equalizing people who have different abilities to find a space where they can be the same, but not the same, right? It's still allowing for that creativity. What then made you say, because you have enough at this point business experience and brand experience, what makes you say, I think that instead of just packaging it and selling it in stores like Mattel, we're going to also create this experience, this interactive, no, truly a world. What makes you take it to that next level? What was it that you were trying to bring to the end user?
I think that for us, it was about this. We were immersed in an experience. It wasn't just play. It was sitting down, and without even thinking, our imaginations went off the charts. And we started saying things like, imagine if the artist caused it a slime. Imagine a luxury jewelry brands with gorgeous jewels and their hands going into slime and how beautiful that would look. Imagine, massive amounts of it in what could be a sculpture. Like, we just went. And we didn't say, oh, let's think every detail through. We're both risk takers. We say we're risk takers without being reckless. We're both seasoned entrepreneurs. At that time, we were in our mid-ish, early late 40s. And what's so interesting about Sarah and me is that we're a real Venn diagram of skill set. So she has a lot of operational know-how. She comes from a business management background and hospitality. I come from marketing, communications, brand building, storytelling, event-driven background. She also has an event-driven background. She understood construction. I understood social media. And we also share an aesthetic of what we want things to look like. And because a lot of our friendship was built around our joint passion for contemporary art, and, we've been now friends for nearly 17 years, we've experienced together a lot of performance, interactive, immersive art in the contemporary art world. And it's something we were both incredibly taken by. We just knew instinctively what we want people to feel like. And we also, I think because we've seen each other at our worst, and, her trauma was around not only having a daughter that has a lot of challenges, not lack of love, but a lot of challenges. Her husband, 3 years before I lost my husband, her husband had bilateral strokes, and it led to a brain injury. And he is now disabled and nonverbal and unable to do any daily activities on his own. So he also doesn't feed himself, get dressed on his own, go to the bathroom on his own. And he was a TED talker. He can say yes and no. He's an incredible person. He actually produced and directed a documentary about his condition by saying yes and no, and it traveled in a special needs film festival. But she has 2 people in her household who need around-the-clock care. And it definitely shattered her soul and her life as she knew it. And also is the kind of person who said, I can build and live again and find a new life. And we both knew somehow, without even saying it, that this could be our coming out of the ashes together. And I personally found so much healing in doing this. I am also married again and have a really amazing, wonderful, beautiful husband who supported me through my lowest lows and believed in me and encouraged me. And it took me a really long time to love again and to think I could have a life again. And that does not negate the pain, which I still have.
Sure.
And still feel all the time. But this, and I'm holding slime in my hand for people who can't see, this really gave me my soul back. And
You can hear
I
it
wanted
cracking. I
other
love
people
it.
to experience it in a really fantastical way that isn't just sitting at home. Because everybody needs some, especially adults, we need guidance on how to play. I realized that I hadn't played because the loss wasn't the beginning of my trauma and my journey. My journey was the years of my difficult marriage, the years of living in a household with somebody who was struggling a lot with his own mental wellness. And I think in that, I wasn't showing up for work in the way that I really could because a part of my soul was in pain. And this is how I found it again.
It's one of the things that in having so many of these conversations with women who are in their middle third, as we like to say around here, we hear a lot about holding two things at once, holding pain and joy. When you just said that you were married again and he's a wonderful person and he could help you in that and holding that pain and see you through it. And then there's also this idea of what you and Sarah went through, this kind of determination that you could rise again from the ashes and that there was more of your story to have and to share. And you guys chose slime as part of that story.
Or slime chose us.
Or slime chose you. I love that.
I
love
also
that.
want to add, I genuinely didn't function for a year and a half. So this was not overnight.
Yeah.
It was a year and a half of just crying day in and day out, waking up in the middle of the night screaming. Like, I'm not exaggerating. This was real. I thought I would literally die of a broken heart.
As hard as that is to hear, I'm glad that you're sharing that because for some, we can hear your story and gloss over all of that pain. As much as you've described in detail to us all the things you did to try and pull yourself out of that season, I think it's important to hear that it just took time and you needed time. Your emotional self needed time. Your physical self needed time. And when the time was right, you and Sarah could come together and see this as an opportunity to continue to heal and to grow something altogether new, and then to share your pain and healing with other people through Sloo Moo, because so much of it is all you have to do is dive into your website to see that this is a passion project, that there's more here than playing with a gooey substance. There's so much more here. What did you learn from running your other businesses that helped you, maybe catapulted you, or you found to be an important lesson that you brought into Sloo Moo?
That's a good question. I think one is that as my previous company grew, I really found myself losing my voice. And I think that's because I was losing my voice at home. And I think I didn't quite know how to handle my life then. And I'm a different person now because of what I went through. And I also think that I felt through my whole career, and I spent a long time as a fashion journalist and in the media space, consulting with brands, a lot of fashion and beauty. I love fashion and beauty, but I think my whole career, I always thought there was a piece of my soul that is 100% not being met or fulfilled. And it was because a lot of my career were things that were living on the surface, right? Fashion's on the surface. Even though I appreciate the art and design elements and how much intelligence and historical references that can go into an amazing design piece. But at the end of the day, you're selling clothes. And when you're in pain in the universe, clothes don't matter. And, that used to be an escape of mine, or a way that I sort of handled pain in my life. Some people drink alcohol. Some people might take a sleeping pill. I don't drink coffee. I'm so boring. And I loved to shop. And when I lost what felt like everything, I couldn't have cared less about shopping. And I realized that I got caught up in certain things because it made me feel better about myself. And what I'm doing now is so authentic to, I think, who I am at my core. And we also have a very mission-oriented business. We hire a neurodiverse workforce. So 10% of our employees are adults who are deep enough on the spectrum that they come to their place of business. They come to us with job coaches. And we partner with Mind Up, the Goldie Hawn Foundation's mental wellness nonprofit for kids globally, and find ways to support each other through whether it's what are the socio-emotional learning tips or conversations that you could have. And, at the end, and we make donations, and, Sarah and I are bringing to the surface the areas that most impacted our lives. And we really openly share our story, because I don't believe this brand even is a brand without our story. And it's because we want other people to know they could be on the brink and have another life and come back and rebuild. So I think that was always missing in my life. And then took me 48 years, because I'm now 52. It almost 53. It took me 47, 48 years to actually find a path that could fulfill myself. And I didn't realize how much of my soul wasn't fulfilled. And that, when I take a step back, is why I had lost a voice, or why I made some poor decisions in my past, or why I maybe didn't see how deeply hurt my marriage was, or I saw it, but I avoided it or brushed things under the rug. And I don't want to live that way anymore.
Yeah. And I think for people who are listening who have gone through far less than what you've gone through, what you're saying is still going to resonate, because so many people come to a place where they feel, even when they're happy with their life, they don't necessarily feel like they've fully expressed something. And I think a lot of the sort of, in air quotes, midlife crisis that people deal with is that they just don't feel like something, they feel like something is still dormant. There's something more that they want. And for you, deep, deep pain and sadness and loss probably pushed that out and helped you to see what was real, and what was needed, and what was still brewing inside of Karen that needed some oxygen. And I think those are some of the takeaways I want people to hear for themselves. What is that in them? And, I asked you the question, what did you learn in your former businesses that you brought into Sloo Moo, and what you said was basically, I brought myself. I brought my authentic self, because you were bringing yourself into all those other creative endeavors. And it's a really stark contrast between the thing you did right before Sloo Moo, which was DBA, where you were highlighting other people who were highlighting other people and things, right? And now the focus was bringing it in, telling your personal story, Sarah's personal story, and bringing it to people to share, sharing it with people, sharing who you are, and the wonder that you guys created, the vision that you had, whether it's the colors or the experience. You both are artists in the way that you've created this world, this Sloo Moo world for us. Where, by the way, can we experience Sloo Moo? I know we can buy the actual product on your website, but where can we experience the Institute?
So we're in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, Houston, and we just opened LA.
Yay!
And we'll open 3 to 5 more in the next 2.5 years.
That's very exciting. That's exciting. We'll make sure to have links in the show notes so people who are in those respective cities can come and visit and have an experience. How would you say you have practically, because we have somebody here who spent so much time in the branding, social media, marketing world, for those who are trying to figure out how to grow something, who've maybe they're working for somebody and they're trying to figure out how to build their own social media personality, maybe, right? Doesn't even mean a business. Or for those who have started something new and are trying to think about that. What do you think has changed in the landscape that maybe you at Sloo Moo are relying on? Like, yeah, that was 5 years ago, what we did on social media. What's important now is fill in the blank.
I mean, the biggest thing that has changed in social media is the algorithms.
Yes.
Or are the algorithms. So when, I remember I started DBA before Instagram even existed. And, it was pretty easy to explode on Instagram when it first came out. Now everything is pay to play.
Yeah.
And we know that TikTok has become the largest search engine, even above Google. And everybody will say the same thing over and over and over. It's about authentic content. It's about having a real point of view. It's about expressing it in really authentic ways. It's thinking about like what will make somebody pause in their scroll. What is the takeaway from everything you share? And we're probably not doing a 10th of what I would want to do. And partially it's because it takes a village.
Yeah.
And we're still a scrappy startup. And we don't have a team of 20 people making content with us and really saying, what's our lens through LinkedIn? What's our lens through TikTok? I mean, we do have a lens through all these things, but to do it right, to do it as thoughtfully as we would want to do it. And we do it thoughtfully, but we can't do it all.
Yeah.
So we're not on Pinterest as much as I want to be. And I see the opportunities where we could do things differently on all of our channels and understanding your audience. So we know that Atlanta and Houston are actually Facebook first audiences, which is an older demographic. So it's a much more of it's always the caretaker or the grandparent. And we know New York, Chicago, LA are more Instagram first. So we have to think about what we're putting out there and how we're putting it out there based on the language of that channel. A lot of it is the mix of science and magic. The magic is the creative and the special sauce and the instinct that we bring to things. And the science is knowing our data and seeing what works and seeing what doesn't. And we've been going for the last 5 years in one way. And what gets you to one place doesn't get you to the next place. So now we're really taking a step back to say, how do we bring in 2025 and elevate? What are the things we need to do? Because we need to start working the way, and I'm going to say this loosely, a real brand works. We
Mhm.
need to be planned 6 months out, a year out. We have been just fixing the engine while flying the plane in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. And now we have to take some bigger steps. And we've gotten really far, right? We have 1.7 million followers on TikTok. We have
Amazing.
242,000 followers on our Instagram. We have great engagement on our Facebook. But I'm more is more, and I always want to do things better, and I always want us to push ourselves and think in different ways and bigger. I love to be surrounded by people who are smarter than I am, who I can rely on for other things. I have a weekly call with my niece and nephew who are 12 and 14 where they have to each tell me one new TikTok trend. And I said to them, I'll pay you $5 a week. And they both said that wasn't enough money. And I was like, you're telling me something you already know. Don't go there with me.
That's fantastic. That I love that. One thing that I'd never heard in all the conversations around social media was the distinction between geographic and demographic kind of outcomes. Like, when I'm in Atlanta, I'm focused on Facebook. I always thought of it as more age, right? This age group is spending their time here. This age group is spending their time there. But that's genius to really have it down to, yes, that age group, but in what city, or who is the person who's paying attention, who's going to move the needle and convert to Sloo Moo.
Because we have to be national and regional in the way that we approach everything.
Sure. That makes sense. And because I know this is a question that I get more from somebody who's just running a business, but how many platforms do you think we should be on? Do you think we should be on one?
I think you should be on what you can do well.
Yeah.
Versus I'm going to do all of them a little bit.
Yeah.
That's why we're not on Pinterest right now. We can't do it well with our just the amount of humans that we are.
Yeah, but even TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook, that's crazy. That's a lot.
That's a lot. And we're not on Twitter/X.
Yeah.
I still can't just call it X. I have to.
I'm the same.
We're not really saying let's be YouTube first content and just make all of our content specifically for YouTube. We're putting things on YouTube. The YouTube channel has a lot of opportunity for growth. And again, it just takes a lot of energy and time and people. And also, if you think about YouTube is a horizontal content platform, Instagram and Twitter and Facebook are more vertical. Well, Facebook can be both, but Instagram and TikTok are vertical content. So you have to shoot in a way that it can work for both, and then edit in a way that it becomes native to where it lives. And again, we have 2 content creators on our team, and one spends half their time doing graphic design and one spends half their time producing. So that's really one. And it's a lot. And there's one community manager, and that community manager, we're looking at how we elevate that role so it's not just community management but social media growth, and they're getting more involved with larger strategy. And again, some of this is an ever changing thing, but I also have to be responsible to the business. And bottom line, or I can't just hire, I don't mean me personally, but we can't just go hire 7 more people because we want to do more things. Because then we crush our business. And then we crush being able to build new spaces. And we're out raising money. We're in the middle of working on our Series B right now. And I'm doing it on a level that I haven't done it before. My last company was self-funded to start. At one point, we raised $2 million. That was it. So now I'm a much bigger playing field when it comes to raising capital. And
you have physical buildings. You have, what it takes to create that universe. It's a lot. It's a lot. And You also have a really interesting concept that takes some storytelling. So as you're getting in front of those investors, they really have to buy into all of it and not just see it as this is not a slime concept. That's not enough. There's so much more. When we talked last time, I was really struck by how much of a therapeutic device or mechanism this is. That Sloo Moo is that what you were going to say? Yeah.
And I pulled up little study results. So, because we just got the information literally yesterday.
Tell me, give me something. Give us something.
We have two studies. One we worked on with a research group called Good Quests, and we really looked at the loneliness epidemic. And when they did their study, they said that 75% of people in the workplace are eager to know their colleagues better. 77% are they want to foster deeper connections at their job. And we all know when you read any article, it's how do we solve the loneliness epidemic? First and foremost, and this wasn't where I was going, I really think people working from home is an actual psychological problem, and it breeds a lack of connection to others and teamwork and social skills. And we're an at office workforce, and mostly because we're also physical spaces. But I believe you can only build teams if you're together. But we sent slime out to over 100 people, and we wanted to get their reactions to what playing with slime specifically did for them. And 65% of the people felt more relaxation throughout the whole workday when they gave themselves 5 minutes of slime play. 58% said they have more creativity, and 57% said that they're more productive. And we also are working on a study with the National Institute for Play, which is a very science-based institute that is really all about what play is on your brain. And we are working with them around research around not just play, but hands-on sensory play. And they did a case study of the Sloo Moo Institute. And there's a lot that actually happens. I have a very dense study that I'm still reading through. I'm only on, page 3, and it's like 90 something pages of what happens in your brain and how all of us, the entire animal kingdom, are actually genetically made for play. If you think about animals, they are always playing. They show a polar bear and a dog from kind of chained up, but who would be a working dog, and how the dog sees the polar bear and goes into a submissive play position. And in all of the next pieces of content, they're literally wrestling and playing, and the bear's on its back with its arms up, and they're cuddling. And play actually brings connection. It brings emotional connection back to yourself. It kicks off your endorphins, your dopamine. And we have a lot of adults who write us and say, well, why do I have to buy a ticket? I'm just a spectator. And we describe it's like a movie. We can only have a certain amount of people in our space. And there's a saturation point for how many we can hold at a time. So every human actually counts. And when you take your kids to a play that you might not want to see, or a movie you definitely don't want to see, you have to buy a ticket. It's the same thing. Or you go to Disney, everybody buys a ticket. And they leave and they say, I needed this more than my kids did.
I was just going to say that.
89-year-old who left and said, I haven't felt this young in decades. I'm coming back with my friends. We have a family. When you come in, so we got our name from a really funny behavior that we spotted in 2017. And people in the slime community were saying, replace the vowels of your name with OO, and that's your slime name. So you're Nudu, I'm Kuroon, slime is Sloo Moo. That's how we got our name. So the first thing that happens when you come to our experience, you get a name tag, you write your Sloo Moo name, you wear it. That for us is a permission to play, because Nudu might be sillier than Netta.
Yeah.
Right? Netta is caught up in the world, all the stuff on your plate, your balance, your bills, your business, your like all the crap and stresses. Nudu is going to be a lot sillier and can let that freak flag out.
That's brilliant. That's really brilliant.
And we didn't necessarily, if you said, plan all these things and check off all these boxes, having your own language, having people change their names because associating yourself with a new identity enables you permission to be a little different, we wouldn't have been able to do it. It was so organic and natural, and it just all rolled out. We literally thought of this entire experience over dinner.
Wow. Just
riffing. And it was like bam, 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 bam. And that's how you know you have something. Then we could take a step back and be like, look at, we didn't even try to check boxes. It was just what it was.
I hear that a lot when people have those moments of clarity, that it just comes. It's like it doesn't stop. You can fill pages up with what this idea can do, how it can serve other people, how it's a creative outlet, revenue opportunities. Like it can just... It is generative, I think, when it's coming, not just from that authentic place, but when you're really recognizing your own needs and assuming other people have needs. I wish everybody could watch every crack that you're hearing. Karen is not she's not chewing gum. She's actually playing with slime. It's awesome. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. And I can't wait to get some slime into my own hands. We're in the midst of doing so much here at Liberty Road, and I was like, the stress factor is a little high, so I need to get me some slime. Room. I know, I do. I have to ask you before I let you go, what is it about launching the Sloo Moo Institute, co-launching with Sarah, the Sloo Moo Institute? What is it about that process that has liberated Karen, the woman?
I think that it's a very special relationship, and we really encourage each other's voices, and we have no boundaries on ideas, so we can let the craziest things out. I think being in a world that is about color and play brought out what was latent in me. And I've always been somebody who loves color, but I literally, physically, and mentally now wear it on my sleeve. And I couldn't have thought of what this was. I could never have planned this. It just happened. And I think that this was literally the biggest gift from the universe to open my path and enable me to live again. And I think ultimately it's because it's enabled me to live again.
I love that your living again is an opportunity for us to play and to wonder and to feel joy. I'm so glad that you said yes to living again. Thank you for sharing a really personal and deep struggle, but for helping us see what's possible in our own stories. I appreciate you so much, Karen.
I have my hand over my heart. I feel your energy, and you're such a beautiful person and so lovely to talk to. And I'm so happy we did this.
Yes, me too.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Liberty listeners, thank you. Thanks for listening to Karen's story. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll have everything you need to know about the Sloo Moo Institute in the show notes, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye for now.